Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Make Your Own Noise podcast. My name is Jack Nigger, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I want to talk about 4 important questions to ask yourself when considering a new project. These questions can be applied in a variety of contexts, whether you're a music producer like myself, you're a video editor, a photographer, a graphic designer, you're in a band, or really you're anyone that has agency over your professional futures. Then listen closely and take note of these 4 following questions. I hope this podcast has found you at a time where you are weighing up your next professional steps. This may be considering to take on a new client, or you're applying for a new role within a business you already work for. But I was in the studio once on a record, and the producer in that talked to me about these questions he asked himself and elaborated a bit more on it. And shout out to Mitch Kenny, a great Australian music producer who's based in America, who initially told me about this framework that I'm going to elaborate on today. So thank you so much. So I'm going to dive straight in here and start with the 4 questions to ask yourself, and then we can break down some examples and talk about each one. The 4 questions to ask yourself when considering to take on a new project or a new opportunity are: number 1, is this good for me financially? Number 2, is this good for me professionally? 3, is this good for me personally? Number 4, is this good for the community? So the 4 things are: is it good for me financially, professionally, personally, or for the community? Now, I know what you're thinking. Every job will cover one of these points, but I promise you, if you really sit with these questions, you'll actually find a lot of opportunities and jobs don't, and at many times you're better off not accepting or applying for it and spending your valuable time on something else. I actually personally now look for this to be ticking off 2 of the 4 a lot of the time. So depending on where you are, I know if you're starting out right now, you need to take on most things, because at that point in your career, everything is good for you professionally. And that ticks one of the boxes straight away. But especially as you progress a little more, think about these questions. So let's dive straight in let's go with financially, the first one. So, is this good for me financially? That is the most obvious one in the sense of, does it pay well? And is it worth my valuable time? So, if this job is worth my time and it is paying me well, maybe in my context, maybe it's a band that's only starting out that has a lot of work to do, and maybe they're not necessarily going to win me my first aria, but it's at full rate and I'm still a business. Okay, it's good for me financially, and maybe it's not so much a professional decision, but that's okay. So that's kind of the more obvious one. I won't elaborate too much more on that, but that's just a great first question to ask yourself. But like I said, I actually aim for 2. So let's go to the next one here. Is this good for me professionally? So will this job or this client help me reach my long-term professional goals? So in my context as an audio engineer, maybe there's this great new band that I saw open for someone, or that someone's passed on to me, or someone I know has shared with me. Maybe they're young. Maybe they don't have that much budget. So maybe it's not that good for me financially. But professionally, if I see a lot in it, maybe it's worth giving them some discounted time or my time for free or whatever it is, because professionally I can see that going somewhere. Or on the flip side, I've also done things with larger bands where I'm spec mixing. So spec mixing means I'm actually doing it for free because they're seeing if they like my work, and if they do choose my work, then I will get paid. But I'm taking the risk of a day or two's work for free, because professionally, if I land that job or I do that day in the studio for free or the mix for free, it could be great for me professionally. Maybe you're a band and you've got offered a really good support gig with someone, and there's not much money in it all, but you're going to be playing to a crowd that's really suited to your sound, and you could gain a bunch of new fans out of it. Maybe you're a photographer that's been asked to travel around with a band on a tour, and there's basically no money in it, but professionally they're a really big band, and maybe personally for you too, which we'll get into next. But maybe that's an opportunity for you to do that. So Professionally is a really important question to ask yourself, and sometimes weighing that up against financially, it can be worth copping a bit of a hit financially if professionally you can see it being more for you. The third one, is it good for me personally? So is this something that I just really want to do? Do I just want to get in the band with this studio because they play killer music that's right up my alley and they don't actually have that much money and they're just kind of doing it for fun, but I really want to do it because it fills my cup and it fills my soul. Maybe you are in a band and your mate's band that you just love touring with and playing with want to bring you on the road, and again, there's not that much money, but you just love hanging with them and doing that. Cool. So personally, I think that's just important for us as creatives to keep us inspired and motivated. So, yep, maybe it's not paying that well. Maybe professionally it could lead to something, but maybe it doesn't. But God, I just want to do it, and it keeps that passion alive, and that passion is what drives us as creatives to do what we do. The last one, is this good for the community? Is this something that is benefiting the broader community or helping someone disadvantaged or in need? So if it's good for the community, I think that can be really important. And I'm not saying do lots of stuff for free or anything, but maybe there's a band and one of the members has had a really hard time. Maybe you've been asked to do a charity show. Maybe you've been asked to photograph at a free local community event. But those kind of things are important too. And I think professionally they can also be seen as good networking opportunities. But I do think the act of service and giving to others is really important for, again, our souls. And that will help fill your cup too. So I'm not saying do obviously too much of it, because we are running a business and I understand we also need to be paid and we need to think of our professional futures. But yeah, maybe there is a job that's good for, someone in need, someone a bit disadvantaged, or maybe you're just looking for another pillar and maybe there's a job you've been asked to take on that pays well and it is helping someone, but it's not good for you professionally, but it's ticking and you don't overly want to do it, but it's ticking 2 of the 4 things, and that's great. So yeah, I think that's another really important one to ask yourself. So again, I aim for 2, but ask yourself these questions, because you'll be surprised how often something might come along and you're like, they don't really have a huge amount of budget. It's probably not going to advance me professionally in the direction I currently want to go. I don't overly want to do it. I have other work opportunities and other ways I want to spend my time right now, and it's not really helping the broader community in any sense. Maybe I don't need to take it on right now. So when you ask yourself those questions and you knock back work occasionally, it can free up time for other things. So whether you're renowned in your field or just starting in your career, these 4 questions still apply. The context around them and the metrics you are using to measure may differ greatly depending on where you're at in your career, but the fundamental point is still the same. Your time is equally valuable, and your future is a product of the decisions and actions you take in this very moment. So ask yourself these questions. Don't be afraid to knock back work. If it's not ticking one of those 4, hopefully it's at least ticking 2 or 3, even all 4 in some circumstances. But I hope you listening today have taken something away from this. Again, the 4 things to ask yourself when you're considering taking on a new client or project or a new job are, is this good for me financially? Is it good for me professionally? Is it good for me personally? Or is it good for the community? I really hope this has helped. Thank you for listening. Please let me know your thoughts. Please let me know if there's a job you're considering at the moment and you're asking yourself these questions in this moment and what your decision was. Yeah, don't wait around for things to happen to you. Make your own noise and build your future. Thank you for listening.